Be sure to check out our exclusive merch not found anywhere else, like our semi-restoration team apparel, along with our line of Garthware, trademark pending. Coffee mugs, t-shirts, and hoodies in a variety of colors to suit every taste. Your purchase directly supports this channel and helps us to continue bringing you awesome content. View the merch below or click the link in the description for our entire catalog.
Sunday, it's Goliath's revenge in the rematch of the decade between Michael Knight and his evil twin.
Goliath is invulnerable.
Can KITT survive this special 2-hour Knight Rider Sunday?
Sunday, it's Goliath's revenge in an all-new episode as Michael Knight battles his evil twin.
Goliath is invulnerable.
Can KITT survive this special 2-hour Knight Rider Sunday?
Production 57839. Goliath Returns, my absolute favorite episode of the series. This episode was written by Robert Foster, Robert W. Gilmer, Tom Green, and Janice Hendler, and it was directed by Winrick Colby. This episode originally aired during February sweeps on NBC, February 19th, 1984, which was Sunday night at 8 p.m. It was filmed from January 4th through the 20th of 1984. It was the 38th episode to air, but the 39th to be produced. Now, Goliath Returns actually went through a number of different titles during the script development process. The original title was Deja Vu All Over Again. Then they shortened that to just Deja Vu. Then they changed it to Return of Goliath. Finally, Goliath Returns. The synopsis reads as follows. Garthe Knight escapes from prison with the help of Adrian Margot and his indestructible rig, Goliath, to exact revenge on the Foundation. So with that, let's dig into this awesome episode. The episode formally begins with this panning through the desert, and you may or may not have noticed, but the original Goliath episode, the season premiere, also started in the same way. So I thought it was a nice bit of continuity to kind of tie the two episodes together even more, that they both start with this panning across the desert. And here we see the prison where Garth is being held. And actually, if you look in the background here, Garth is right there in the middle of this arm wrestling competition. But this is actually the Lincoln Heights jail. And it's not the first time we've seen the Lincoln Heights jail on Knight Rider. We saw it back in Brother's Keeper when KITT was extracting Michael from the prison. That was the same prison yard. And the interesting thing here is if you look down here, this actually is not or was not the prison yard. They decorated this. You can actually see that this was a parking lot, and you can see the concrete barriers for each of the parking spots here. And if we move forward ahead, the guard is walking supposedly in this prison yard. But if you look in the background, it's wide open and there's a train here. So as you can imagine, I don't think a prison where Garthe Knight was being held would have this open area with a train right behind it for a quick and easy getaway. And then we get our first really good close-up look at Garth. And they did a nice job with this fake beard. You can see a little bit of the adhesive right here on his lip. But this was a neat touch to have him get rid of his goatee and have a full beard just for the start of the episode. So many of you have watched the video that we just put out on Goliath, a little analysis of the truck and what we think happened to it and all that stuff. And a number of people have commented to us correcting a couple things that we said in that video. So, this might be a good opportunity to correct some of those things publicly. All right. So first of all, this is a really great look at the front of Goliath, and in HD, it's pretty neat to see. It looks like almost they have maybe some wires taped to the front here, right here and right here. Maybe it's to go to the smoke that comes out of the bumper. I don't really know, but there's something going on there. But what I wanted to show you is this. So this is right after Goliath breaks through the prison wall with the help of one of Garth's minions, which, by the way, in early draft scripts, the guy that breaks Garth out of prison even has a name. His name is Halverson, but that doesn't make it into the episode. Anyways, so a couple of you guys pointed out, in our original video, we called this a 1973 Peterbilt 352 pacemaker. And a couple people commented to us that there's no way this is a 1973. And one person in particular pointed out all the exact reasons why it's not a 1973 and why Goliath is specifically a 1977 Peterbilt 352 pacemaker. And let's just go into that here for a second. So see the door handles? See how they're lower on the door here? On pre-1977 Peterbilt pacemakers, they're up here. The door handles are up here. So in 77, this was the first year that they moved them down below. And as it turns out, the 1977 was a one-year only design because the handles were down here, but then also the AC evaporator gets moved to behind the grill in 1978 as opposed to where it is on this truck here. So those two details can nail down that Goliath is actually a 1977 Peterbilt, not a 1973. So what does that mean? Well, probably not much, but one day, if we find Goliath, yeah, we'll confirm it's a 77, and that will be just one more piece to help us verify that it's the real truck. All right, let's move on. So as I was saying, this would be Halverson here, but in reality, I think this is Al Jones, who was part of the stunt crew, and he appears a million times in Knight Rider in the background. He does stunt driving. You'll see him all over the place, but here he's playing Halverson. And then once they complete their escape, magically they're back in the desert. I think it's the Gene Roach dry lake bed from Goliath, right outside of Las Vegas. That's where this is. There's a lot of stock footage of Goliath, as you can imagine, that's used in Goliath Returns, but was filmed for Goliath. All right, and then we have our first scene of KITT in the episode, and Michael's barreling around a bend, getting ready to test out the parachute on KITT. And what's interesting to note is in the earlier script, in earlier versions of the script, that function actually has a name. It's the Emergency Parachute Deployment, or EPD. Now, we don't hear it called that in the episode, but that's what it is. And of course, this is Jack Gill driving right here. And for those of you curious about the cars used in this 2-hour episode, they only use 4 cars. The one you're looking at here is the hardtop stunt car, once again, which is in pretty much every episode for the rest of the series. We've got the insert car, which, interestingly, and we'll go over this, was used for more than just insert shots in this episode. We've got the hero car, and we've got the left-hand blind drive car. Only those 4 cars were used in this episode. So now we see this close-up of Michael, and just another little detail that 99% of you might not care about, but we do. See this screw right here on the door panel? This is another detail on this insert car. We talked about in our last episode the extra screw they added into the rear speaker sail panel covers. Well, and that's how one of the ways we identified our car as being this insert car, one of the many ways. But also this right here. See this? There's a screw right here. So when we originally got the car, there of course was no screw here. But we took the door panel off and moved the weather stripping aside, and what did we see? A hole right there, which was not a factory hole. None of this is factory. So when we restored it, what did we do? We put a screw in there. It's all about the details. If you look at the car, you can see sometimes when Hasselhoff's driving, you can see the door panel. And on the actual sill plate that normally goes here, there was a screw right about here. And I just wanted to see if there was a screw hole here. So there's nothing on the weather stripping because it's been replaced. But look what happens when we peek back here. A screw hole right where it should be. Gotta love history. So do you remember back in our commentary for Nightmares, in the episode, there's a scene where they pull up information on Frank Poole, who is the main bad guy from that episode. And do you remember a couple episodes later, we see that same information show up on this computer screen right here. We don't see a close-up of it. We see it similar to this, kind of off to the side. But Frank Poole's information shows up on the computer in another episode besides Nightmares. And that was obviously just something they had programmed into the computer to display, and they didn't change it. So fast forward to the episode White Line Warriors, and we see a close-up of Ron Prescott's police record. Well, wouldn't you know it, here, in this scene from Goliath Returns, this is the information about Ron Prescott on the screen. So Nightmares had information that we saw a close-up. And then, what episode was that? Was that a Knight in Shining Armor? I think it was a Knight in Shining Armor, where we see kind of the team walking near the computer, near enough to tell that information was still Frank Poole. Then we had White Line Warriors. We saw a close-up of Ron Prescott's police record. And now we're seeing this far away shot, and this is Ron Prescott's information showing up here. How do we know that, right? You can't read it. So, okay. We don't know 100%. We know 99.9% because A, we know that they've done this before, and B, if you compare the close-up of Ron Prescott's information on the screen and you compare it to this, you can see it's the same number of lines. You can see that the words end in the same staggered pattern. This is Ron Prescott's information. And April's glasses are laying right there beside the computer. All right. Pretty neat, huh? Maybe, maybe not. All right, so now we're going to move forward, and here's our introduction to Christina Bergstrom, played by Suzanne Barnes. So talk about weird coincidences. So in the original Goliath, the main female guest star was Shawn Southwick, who played Rita Wilcox, right? All right, and some of you guys who watched the Shawn Southwick interview on our channel a couple months ago will know this fact that I'm just about to tell you. But so Shawn Southwick was the main female in Goliath. Suzanne Barnes is the main female in Goliath Returns. Shawn Southwick and Suzanne Barnes are sister-in-laws. Suzanne Barnes, seen here, married Shawn Southwick's brother. How about that? She now lives, I think, in Utah, and runs a home decorating design firm. So there you go. And we return to Arden Villa in Pasadena for Flag Headquarters. This is the final time in the series that they will actually film at this location. Every other time after this that we see the Foundation, it's stock footage. So this is appearance 4 out of 4. We saw originally, the first time was in Whitebird, then it was in Brother's Keeper, then it was in A Knight in Shining Armor, and now the 4th appearance here in Goliath Returns. And here's the introduction of Peter Mark Richmond as Klaus Bergstrom. And we're not going to really talk about it here, but check out our video. We did a video a little while back. We own Peter Mark Richmond's personal script from this episode, from Goliath Returns. And it's full of all kinds of information, interesting information about how he prepared for the role, specifically on the dialects, the Swedish dialects, and how he did that, even down to the type of bronzer he used on his skin. It's really interesting to take a look. And I bring you guys kind of over my shoulder and we go through the whole script. So check that video out on our channel if you're interested. But Peter Mark Richmond appears here, and he'll appear again as the evil Kleist in Season 4's Many Happy Returns. All right, so even though we showed the title screen first in this in our commentary here, this was actually one of the rare times that the title screens didn't appear at the very beginning of the episode. It was actually in the episode quite a bit. We had the whole Garth breaking out, and then Michael finding out, and then finally they get to the title screen. But many people have noticed this over the years, this specific credit here. Anne TURKEL as Adrian St. Clair. Why is it listed as Adrian St. Clair, you might ask? Well, that's a great question. And the answer is, I don't really know. My guess is it was simply an error on the titles team that put together these titles. So obviously this is the same character from Soul Survivor. In fact, in the original script for Goliath Returns, it even mentions in the notes that the first time we see her, this is Adrienne Margot, and in parentheses it says from Soul Survivor fame. So clearly they were bringing back the same character from the very beginning. And even in that first draft, she's called Adrienne Margot. So if we back up all the way to Soul Survivor, and we look at Soul Survivor, we see Ann Turkel's credit in the opening of the episode. It doesn't list the character name, it just says Ann Turkel. So then we go back to the Soul Survivor scripts, and we looked at the second draft of Soul Survivor, and she's still Adrienne Margot. So all that to say, I think they just made a mistake here that actually didn't get caught and made it into the episode. All right, and now we see our first establishing shot of the mansion that Adrienne and Garthe are using for their hideout. This is Saddle Rock Ranch in Malibu. Interesting to note, we see this house a second time in the series, and we see it in Night in Retreat as the mansion that Bianca owns for the retreat. And strangely enough, Ann Turkel is the head of the retreat. So this house and Ann Turkel are both in these two episodes. Unfortunately, a couple years ago, there was a major wildfire in that area. And unfortunately, it burned this house down, which is such a shame. All right, and then we move forward. We've got Garthe getting out of the limo. This license plate you see here, 1XWY815, we actually own the front and rear license plates from this limousine. We saw this plate, I think it was in A Knight in Shining Armor. It was on one of the cars there. And now it's here, and if you're interested in seeing that plate up close, we also have a video on that. Check out our channel. All right, so here's the first time we see Ann in this episode, and she had an interesting story to tell about specifically her swimsuit. So back during the time that this was being filmed, Ann Turkel was launching a line of swimsuits where the sun would be able to penetrate the swimsuit to tan underneath the swimsuit. It was called the N suit, I guess. And this was one of the only times in her career where Ann was able to wear her own clothes or pick out her own clothes. So here she's wearing her own swimsuit. But throughout the rest of the episode, Ann actually went to the Universal Wardrobe Department and handpicked all of her different outfits. And she also did her hair all by herself because she didn't like anyone touching her hair. So there we go. There's the N suit. All right, so now we have Michael, Klaus, and Christina getting out of KITT back at the hotel. Look in the background. Here's our red Camaro. And then we move forward, and this is the siege on the Foundation to capture Devon and April. And this is Jack Gill. Pretty sure. Look at those eyes. That looks like Jack Gill. So we move forward, and they're taking the Foundation over. And even as a kid, I always remembered, man, this security guard sure has some wet armpits. All right, continuing. And that's not a shadow. Watch the scene. He's like drenched. Continuing. All right, so speaking of the hotel, which we just mentioned a minute ago, this is the Sheraton, I believe it's the Sheraton Hotel on West Century Boulevard in Los Angeles. This hotel was used a number of times in the series. We saw it way back in the pilot. This stood in as the Las Vegas Casino, where Michael Long was. And we also saw it in the Topaz Connection, and we see it here. All right, so let's all take a minute and let's applaud Hasselhoff here, even though this was almost 40 years ago, for the perfect smoke rings that he was able to achieve for this scene. It's pretty impressive, I must say. Look at that. Look at that. Right there. Look like glasses. And then this is cool. So this is the first time I've ever freeze framed on this. So take a look at this. Originally, this is a blink and you'll miss it screen grab, but we've got some spark happening right by his hand, and then it doesn't shoot a bullet, but it just shoots fire out the end. But that's pretty cool. Wonder whatever happened to that stunt cane. That'd be pretty neat. And then he puts out the cigar here and it rolls out of the ashtray and it's still smoking right here on this pad. So hopefully the foundation didn't burn down. All right, so here's what I was mentioning. This is actually the insert car, and it's a rare time that we see the outside of the insert car in season 2. And it's one of only 2 cars at this point that still has the fog light grills right here. The other one is the car that would become the season 3 and 4 hero car, but that's not used in this episode. But this is the insert car. There he's coming to a slide, and you can even see the chrome coat hook on the inside, which was only this car and no other car. All right, so now we have April and Devon being taken to their cell. This cell was built on the Universal Studios soundstage. Just for your information, this whole set. All right, now we've got this scene with the limo, and once again, there's Jack Gill. He's driving the limo. Yes, and here's the establishing shot of the hotel. You go by it today, it looks identical. Same windows, same everything. And we see this establishing shot, I don't know, 3 or 4 times in this episode, and it's always this exact same scene. You can always see the Sheraton transit bus pulling up and just parking right there, and every single time. All right, so then we get this kind of neat point of view. This is also still the insert car. We get a neat point of view. You can even see the steering wheel with the, there's a block-off plate that's just screwed in the front. And we don't own this wheel, but we own another wheel where it has the screwed in block-off plate here. But that's so they could access the wheel hub to get the steering wheel on and off. All right. And then kit sinking. Another, obviously, model use by Sessoms and Slagle. Models are used extensively in this episode, as they have been for most of season 2. And like I said before, clearly when you look at it like this, you're like, that is not a Trans Am. But they do redesign the body here, I think next season. There's the back side of it too. And if you look at it, this is even a Trans Am bumper. This is a Camaro bumper because these model kits were all based on the Camaro model kit. White wire alert. Dun da da, right there. There's your white wire for today. You're welcome. This is the hero car, by the way. Isn't that amazing? That's the same white wire we were seeing way back in Good Day at White Rock. You know, all those episodes ago. Still showing. And then they muddied up. This is the hero car they muddied up too, which is amazing. They shoved mud in the fog light openings and all over the bumper. But this is the hero car that they did that to, which is kind of surprising, actually. All right. So let's talk about this. In the original script for the episode, after Michael escapes from this bog, this SUV, the script says that the SUV slowly sinks into the bog and goes completely under. All the while, a commando is watching from the hilltop and reporting back to Garth on whether the trap worked or not. Now, obviously, we don't see that in the episode. However, we see evidence that both those things were filmed. Because look at this. And you can really only see this if we do a screenshot. So take a look right here. Look at the SUV. Look underneath the SUV. Now let's advance one. Look at this. See how it's starting to sink? You get one frame of it sinking before it cuts, and that's this frame. So they actually filmed the sinking of this SUV because it was in the script, it was just cut. So you can see it sinking there. And then if we move forward, as Kit drives around this road, look up on the hilltop and you'll see a commando. You don't see him, and then he stands up and he puts his arms to his head like he's looking through binoculars. And that's all part of what the script called for at the time. And you know what? Let's take a look at the script to see exactly what it says. So right here. I wonder whether Garth expect us to go under design to buy time. Time for what? I don't know, but I'll feel a lot better when I do. And then Kit leaves. But look at this. He glances out the window, point of view on the old car, goes under, the lifeless faces of Devon April disappearing in the bog. And then Michael shudders, puts Kit into gear. Let's give this place the big adios, the sooner the better. And then look at this. Kit skirts the bog, reaches the road, and heads back. Camera pans up to the mountain above the bog as we see a commando watch Kit through binoculars. So there we go. Those scenes were filmed. I'm sure those scenes were filmed and they were just cut, but there's still evidence right there. This is once again the hardtop stunt car. This is one of the best looks we get at it kind of up close. You can see how much this bumper is sagging right here. Look at this. This is the top of the bumper right here. It should really be up here, but we all like the bumper sag. And doesn't that look like a mannequin? I don't think that's a mannequin. All right, continuing. All right, so then Michael's racing to the mansion, and this is a scene not cut, it was reused from Blind Spot, and here's that Herbie-style Volkswagen Bug that we saw all throughout Blind Spot and some other episodes around that time, which we don't see anymore. And then Michael comes down this road, still the hardtop stunt car. This is the same curvy road. This is still Dead Man's Curve from the pilot when Michael's asleep and the police officers are chasing him, and they say, if he's not dead now, he will be soon. That's Dead Man's Curve. That's this road right here. This is Pico Canyon. All right, so this is still Pico Canyon. This is a point of view shot from inside Goliath with KITT in the background. Man, anytime in Knight Rider, almost anytime you see filming like kind of out in the middle of nowhere like this, it was in Pico Canyon. Junkyard Dog, the acid pit was in here. 10-Wheel Trouble, just the pilot, tons of episodes filmed out here on these stretches of road in the middle of nowhere. And the interesting thing to note here is obviously this whole scene is supposed to take place near a cliff, right? Over 300 feet straight down or something like that. But in reality, on this road in the middle of nowhere, there are no cliffs. There is no ocean. Or, well, I guess there wasn't an ocean in the scene, but there are no cliffs in this episode. So he's just spinning out of control, and then it's going to cut to him flying over the cliff, which actually isn't there. And, all right, this is the correct version of the scene we see in the blooper reel, the awesome scene, which we'll show right here.
I forgot my f***ing walkie-talkie.
All right, just had to put that in there. So now we have Michael floating down from space, right? He went off the cliff, and he's now floating down. In reality, this whole scene with Hasselhoff in this car, which is the insert car, look, you can see the chrome coat hook right there. Hasselhoff and the car were actually suspended up on a crane for this scene. So he's really in the air during the scene. And if you look in the background, you can see the background's kind of floating by, and that's because he's in the air. And there's someone in the passenger seat filming all of this. We asked Jack Gill about this a number of years ago, and he said, we hung the car on a crane and took it up about 250 feet with David in the driver's seat and a cameraman in the right seat to shoot him in the sky. We started to take the director up to see if he wanted to do some point of view shots. At about 15 feet up, he freaked out, so Jack had to go up instead. And let's back up a little bit too, because something we should have discussed at the opening of this episode is kind of a little bit of how this script came to be. And we talked to Tom Green about this, who wrote part of the script, was a producer, and he said it just took one day to write the script. They went to a place called the Hamburger Hamlet on a Saturday morning. We needed 8 acts, so we each worked out what was going to happen. All 4 of us did 2 acts, each writing about 20 pages, and titled it Deja Vu all over again. They had decided to write a no-holds-barred adventure that put the entire team in danger. And Green came up with several key scenes in the episode, including this scene with the parachute, and it was Tom's suggestion that they use the models for this scene, which they do for everything except the insert shots here. All right, so now we have the KITT hung up like a side of beef here, and this is in reality the inside of the Universal Studios tram garage. On the back lot of Universal Studios. And we've got a number of diagnostic equipment pieces from modern props here all around KITT. But this is where they service the trams that take visitors around Universal Studios to this day. And it's neat because we had the opportunity back in 2012. We actually were in this very room. And the other cool thing is, one of our 2 original cars that languished at the studio for many, many, many years was actually parked right outside of this building for 15 years. For a long time, it just sat right outside of this building. And literally right on the other side of this wall over here. So, but yeah, in 2012, we had the opportunity to go in here and we talked to some of the guys in here, and it was pretty neat. But One thing that one of our viewers pointed out, actually Bill Purviance, who worked on Knight Rider, pointed out that this is also the same place where they put the molecular bonded shell on Goliath in the original Goliath. And in fact, if you look off to the side when they're spraying it on, you can actually see a Universal Studios tram in the bay next to Goliath. So how cool is that? All right, so now we have Carl here trying to get the CPU out and going to transplant it into Goliath. So in the actual final episode, that was just kind of a minor plot point here. We had never really heard about that before, but in earlier versions of the script, that was a much bigger part of the entire plan. In fact, there's a scene where Adrian tells Garth that her only interest in Michael Knight is to reacquire KITT for herself. Reacquire from, she acquired him in Soul Survivor, but Randy threw out the CPU, which Adrian didn't like, right? But she wanted, her only interest in Michael Knight is to reacquire KITT. Her plan is to combine KITT's CPU with Goliath's body for unlimited power. So if you just think about this, and obviously none of this was planned when they filmed Soul Survivor or when they filmed the first Goliath, but this all came together very nicely if you think about it. So Adrian also makes the comment, and she does make it in the episode, that she resurrected Goliath from a burnt out shell in the desert, and she's been in charge of this project since the beginning, which means Adrian helped to develop Goliath, right? And she learned about KITT, and she wanted to acquire the CPU. Well, Soul Survivor comes around, so at that point, Goliath's already destroyed. Garth's in prison. But, behind the scenes, we're supposed to believe that Adrian has already gone out, got the remains of Goliath, and is rebuilding him during that time. So Adrian is trying to capture KITT, so when Goliath is rebuilt, she can put the CPU in, but Randy gets rid of the CPU, not thinking it's needed. So it's really fascinating that while it wasn't planned, this thread of a story really works through Goliath, Soul Survivor, and Goliath Returns. All right, so another interesting note is this whole jail scene. So Tom Green told us that this was his idea as well. So he said, I had Devin and April trying to break out of jail. Ann Davis, who is one of the show's higher-ups, liked the idea of using spies bread along with the buttons and material from a cardigan to make an explosive to free them from the cell. So, and then Tom Green goes on to say, years later, MacGyver came out. And this is right up MacGyver's alley, right? So, he always jokes, maybe this scene was the inspiration for MacGyver, a year and a half later. Who knows? And then you get this really bizarre scene with Garth and Adrian just slapping each other, which is kind of graphic for Knight Rider, I think. And if you notice, these are not stunt doubles. This is Ann TURKEL and David Hasselhoff. So Ann told us before they shot this scene, Ann called David over and said, listen, let's not pretend here. Let's do this for real or it's going to look phony. So even though no one wanted that, David agreed. So Ann really slapped him. David really slapped her, and Ann says, if you notice in the scene, she just went flying. She went off camera. So when they said cut, David rushed over to her and asked if she was all right. And she said they were able to laugh about it afterwards. But she said she's really proud of that scene because they're both evil characters, and it just brought everything, it made it real. So now we have Michael. Michael's trapped in the cell, and he's using Adrian's own words to piece together a couple sentences to play to the guards to get out. So if you watch, we see the scene pretty much in its entirety where Adrian is talking to Michael and he's recording. There are a number of words here that Adrian never says, like guards, open door, taking. She only says out, Michael, of, or something weird like that. So not sure where KITT got the other words, but it worked. And then we have Michael doing some fixing on KITT, and another rare time we see under the hood, sort of. This is a replacement GM hood right there. That's a General Motors sticker. So this is probably a hood they got from a dealership. That'd be my guess. And if you look down here, you see just the top of the aftermarket air cleaner wing nut right there. All right, so let's take a moment to just look at the amazing detail behind the Sessoms and Schlegel Goliath model. I mean, they did an amazing job. They have the step here. They've got the door handle in the right location. They've got the full sleeper back here. They even have the bent over pull handle right there. I mean, they did a fantastic job on this model. All right, so Michael has rescued Christina. We're in the insert car. We've got some buttons missing here. And if you watch throughout these scenes, one of these buttons keeps appearing and disappearing. So obviously filmed out of order. And then Adrian's climbing up into Goliath. And if you look, you get this shot here. There's a camera mounted on Goliath's dashboard. I'm not sure if this is for actual filming, like if it's actually recording video. It might be, because we do see some point of view shots on the inside of the cab, so maybe this is recording, or maybe it's left over from the original Goliath in the story, how, you know, they're filming breaking into Red Bluff. Maybe it's part of that they left over. I don't know, but there's a camera right there. All right, so this is pretty cool. This is one of the times where we see like a car gets swapped out pretty quickly. So here we have the hero car. And we get, you know, you can see we've got the fog lights, we've got the tow bar here, we've got a nice form-fitting console, no sun visor here, and then we switch, and all of a sudden this is the left-hand blind drive car. And we've got now the fog lights, so the fog lights here are on the outside, now they're on the inside. We've got some lights here, some blue lights, I don't know. I'm not sure what this is. I'm not sure if this is left over from Race for Life whenever they were doing all the blinky lights. Not really sure. But you can see here, you can almost even see a face right there in that seat, but it's a bulkier seat. We've got the sun visor here, and we've got a less form-fitting overhead console. Some of the many ways you can tell the cars apart here. All right, and then we have Garth Imposter here. I always like that. That's clearly not Hasselhoff driving Goliath around the bend. All right, so then we see all the sparks flying on Goliath. If you look closely, you can see the squibs right here, especially on this side right here. These are all these squibs that they put on the car, and it's just a shower of, there's one still glowing right there. Just a shower of sparks as they film this scene. All right, so Michael is now in the process of rescuing Klaus Bergstrom. We've got the car being blind driven right here. And if you look here, this guy, who's not Hasselhoff, is wearing this red shirt, right? Like a plaid red shirt. But Hasselhoff's actually wearing a blue shirt in this time, so they kind of screwed that up. But that's okay. All right, and then we jump ahead, and Garth sacrifices himself. I don't know why. Off the cliff and oblivion, and here's the model, and you can see the top of Goliath is all destroyed. And that is the end of Garth and Adrian. We never see them again, although we see Ann TURKEL in Night of Retreat playing a different character. I don't know why they did that. So in what might be one of the ugliest outfits that Hasselhoff wears in Knight Rider, although the shirt in Lost Night could be pretty close, he's got this funky sweater with a very high collar on, and Hasselhoff must have liked it, and this might have actually been his shirt, because first of all, we see it again at the end of Night of the Chameleon. He wears this shirt, but then Hasselhoff also did an interview with Good Morning America in 1985, and he's wearing this same shirt. So don't know, might be his, but not the best fashion choice, but I guess for 1984 it probably was. All right, so then we see this close-up of Kit. So Michael comes out of the Foundation, Klaus and Christina arrive. Then we see this close-up of Kit. And ironically, this is reused footage from Soul Survivor. They're actually at Adrian Margot's house. This Kit's in the driveway right here. And then Michael goes to leave, and this is reused footage from the Topaz Connection. This is Lauren Royce right here in the limousine. And you can even see we still have the Chaffee-style overhead console in this car, because it's Season 1 footage. Oh, okay. We have finished Goliath Returns. Like I said, my absolute favorite episode of Knight Rider. I hope you guys really enjoyed this. We are closing in on Season 2. Next up, we've got A Good Night's Work, another amazing episode. And then Mouth of the Snake, Let It Be Me, and Big Iron, and we are wrapping up season 2. So, as always, appreciate your time. Thanks for spending it with me. We'll talk to you soon.
And now, while we listen to Joe's selection of Knight Rider music that we received directly from Don Peake himself, we'd like to thank these Patreon supporters. Look at you guys scrolling up the screen to my right. Wait a minute, how can you tell which side is my right, since you can't see me because I'm not on camera? Oh well, you know what I mean. We're featuring these fine supporters at our Knight Rider Prop Restorer level. Thank you very much for your support. And for those of you at the Knight Rider History Hunter level, we're recognizing you right now in the description. Now, if you enjoyed seeing this golden nugget of Knight Rider history being rescued from obscurity, then please consider supporting us on Patreon. Your support would empower us to bring you even more of these historical nuggets. We are the Knight Rider Historians. Till next time, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.